It's just after 8 o'clock in Las Vegas, where we don't take kindly to sharks.
Hey, mama said the way you move gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove.
Fat bottom girls, you make the rockin' world go round.
Hello, baby. Yeah.
This is Sports X Radio with Ken Thomson.
He can play split end, he can play flanker, he can play in the slot, he can return punts and sell popcorn at halftime. We're excited about this guy.
Presented by Panacea & Boyle, trial attorneys who get results. PSBLaw.com. Steiner's Pub, a true Nevada-style pub. Cheyenne, Buffalo, and Las Vegas Boulevard South. Steiner's, we love this place. Rob Rishi Farmers Insurance, 702-335-5744. Laborers Union, 872. Building Las Vegas Stadium, future home of the Raiders. PromoDirect.com. 10% discount code K-10 at checkout. Get Ken's picks at pregame.com. Let's do this. Sports X Radio with Ken Thomson.
Come with me.
Yeah, on a Friday football fiasco, it is Ken Thomson back home. And I really, truly mean that, back home at Legacy Stadium. Of course, the beautiful Venetian Palazzo. And I was here for a couple years, back when they built the studio, which is iconic. It's one of the greatest sports venues in the entire country. I think it actually is. It's outstanding. If you have not been here, Venetian, everybody knows Venetian. It's on the Palazzo side, literally downstairs. And the food is creme de la creme. Those that have been here, they know all about it, especially for March Madness, football. I mean, this weekend's going to be crazy with the college football full card tomorrow, and, of course, NFL football opening up a full slate on Sunday, the doubleheader on Monday. It'll be outstanding. SportsX Radio, Ken Thomson, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Wednesdays still at Steiner's Pub, but you'll always be able to catch the show on the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN, 50,000 watts at night. Does not power down. Those on the West Coast know all about the AM signal, 101.5 on the FM when here locally in the Vegas Valley as well. Now, the Friday football fiasco, last week we got it going. Brad Powers, one of the best in the business. Mr. College Football, of course, doing his yeoman's work for Phil Steele for many years and, of course, transitioned out to Vegas. Brad Powers, it is great to have you here at Legacy Stadium. Your first time here, I believe, in studio.
It is. First time in the Palazzo, believe it or not. I'm a horrible Las Vegas person. I mean, I've been here 3 years, KT. Never even been in this casino before.
Yeah, it's going to be great when we give you the tour afterwards. It's not only a great venue indoors with private rooms, but it also has a great outdoor venue. You have pool tables. You've got the TV set up. If you're ever looking to rent out something for an extravagant event, there's no better place. Dana White, many parties here, UFC. This is where I had a great time interviewing Tim McGraw, Manny Pacquiao. I mean, just the creme de la creme. And, of course, everybody knows the Venetian. The Palazzo is equally as elegant on the other side. So kind of like the 2-for-1. And you'll see it. It's iconic. And, of course, we'll have video going out. We'll have SportsX Radio on Friday nights being filmed. We'll get it out on a Roku channel. We'll get it out. J.D. Sharp is with me as well. Now, J.D. Sharp, you know him from Sharp and Shapiro. They go 9 a.m. till noon, also on KDWN. Initially, they were 6 to 8 p.m., so they preceded SportsX Radio. But, J.D., now I've got you trying to, at least try and make a deal on Friday nights where I swap Chris Wynn, the Detroit product, on a Friday and get you out of there on Friday. Kind of like, they had Ditch Fridays over at the Palms. Well, right now you're ditching Shapiro on Fridays. We got to get you over here because this is really what you do. You enjoy the political stuff, but you're all about sports and sports gaming.
I'm a professional handicapper by trade, and anytime I get a chance to talk sports for more than 15 minutes, I will take that opportunity. And 2 hours sounds fantastic to me.
That's why your dad shipped you out west. He's like, all right, kid, get to Vegas. I can't take the sports talk anymore. But we're going to go at a rapid pace. We will hit all the college football, and then we'll finish up last 15, 20 minutes on all of the NFL games and, of course, a full slate. But real quick, as far as the Legacy Stadium, it is Emeril Lagasse's food coming out of the kitchen. Now, my pal Scott Pajak, he's been here for a while. Don't hold it against him. He's a Buffalo Bills fan. He means well. But Scott Pajak is one of the top chefs in the Vegas Valley. There's some others there as well. Now, some of the personnel has changed since I was here last, but there are several that I ran into tonight and, of course, last night as well. it is great to see some of the old staffers and to see some of them move up the line as well. Stacy, Robert, outstanding managers, and of course Brian now, the general manager here at Legacy Stadium. Ladies' night on Wednesdays. You got to be here on Wednesday nights. Lots of specials. They have 50% off on Well Drinks, draft beer, One Hope Chardonnay, and Cabernet. Now, if you come into Legacy Stadium, remember, just say, I heard it right here on KDWN. So that means a lot of you that are going to be coming in. Every night but Wednesday, I'll be here during the weekdays. But even if you get here on a Wednesday night, just say, I heard it on KDWN. Your Bud Light draft is free, or you can have One Hope Chardonnay or Cabernet, 1 glass per person. We don't want you just sitting there getting loaded on Sports X Radio on KDWN, but that is an enticement to come in. Once you come here to this property, once you try the food, you will be hooked. You will come here many times. You will recommend this place to your friends. It's what we do. We network, but it's easy to network when you have an incredible venue like Legacy Stadium. It is the best in the Las Vegas Valley. Guys, we got a ton of games to get to. Let's get rolling. Ohio, my nephew's alma mater, Nathan Rourke and company, they are playing Pitt. We're going to look at the lines. We're going to use let's use CG Technology because they run the book inside here. So we'll use CGT. We'll use their current lines or lines that were up as about 4 or 5 minutes ago. We make sure that we stay just a little bit behind there because when you're doing radio shows, you want to be able to get those lines up, but you've got to be careful not to give lines as they change. Right now, Pittsburgh at home, -4, total of 54. Brad, I'm going to throw it to you. Kenny Pickett, not a bad effort last week, but 2 interceptions, costly. They lose the game at home to Virginia. Did not get going in the second half. In fact, I don't even know if they scored against Virginia in the second half. They had a 1-point lead at half. A couple guys, A.J. Davis and Sibley Jr., not bad as far as playmakers for Pitt, but they need to do some damage here against an Ohio team under Frank Solich that we know always brings their lunch pail. They are blue-collar workers, of course.
Yeah, so, I mean, this line looks a little fishy to me at 4, basically saying on a neutral that Pittsburgh's maybe only 1 point better than Ohio. This is a very important game for the Panthers. This is a team that's already off to an 0-1 start. And who do they play next week, KT? It's Penn State, a game that they'll be a significant underdog in. So an important game at the current 4 line. I'm going to lean with Pitt here.
JD?
No comment on this one, KT.
You're going to – that's it. Nothing at all.
He's going to give you the hand signal.
Yeah, that's it. I am not touching this game.
I will get this out here, of course. Sports X Michelle, Bets Like a Girl, play of the week every Thursday night. Now, last night some technical difficulties, but we tweeted it out. It is Ohio. That's her son's alma mater. He graduated Ohio U last week, and it was 5. It is 4 currently right now. Pittsburgh favored by 4 over Ohio, but SportsX Michelle, 24 wins and 11 losses in 35 Thursday night appearances. So I'm not going against her. It's my little sister, and she embarrassed me. She embarrassed me last week. She embarrassed me last week. Brad and I struggled mightily doing all these stats, coming up with all this stuff, and SportsX Michelle just, the weather looks nice. Okay, great. An easy 15-point winner in her game last week as well. Old Dominion, Virginia Tech, Vatech smarting after a 35-28 loss to British Columbia. Boston College. The old BC comes into play. Ryan Willis had a nice game throwing the ball, 344 and 4 touchdowns, similar to the game that we saw McDonald have for Hawaii, but 3 interceptions for Willis. McDonald had 4, Willis had 3. They had trouble running the football. Right now they're going to be at home against ODU. This is an ODU team that took him out last year. And you got to love the name of the quarterback for ODU, Stone Smart. The only bad thing is he spells smart with 2 T's. So how smart is he, Brad?
Well, not going to be very smart coming up tomorrow. That's at least my expectation. I like Virginia Tech in this game. I bet Virginia Tech in this game. This is obviously a revenge, KT. Virginia Tech last year lost outright to Old Dominion as a 28-point favorite. So that'll be on their minds. Also, missed opportunity for Virginia Tech last week, -4 in turnovers against Boston College. I expect a much cleaner effort out of them. Again, I like Virginia Tech laying the big number here.
JD?
I will agree with Brad Powers. Virginia Tech sounds like the play to me.
All right, now here at CG Technology, it is 28. It is 28.5 pretty much everywhere else in Vegas. So CGT, right here, Venetian Palazzo. You can also go to the Hard Rock. There's a CGT there. And there is Cosmopolitan as well. Those are shops that you can get Canner Gaming. And right now, that half point is big because you don't want to lay over 4 touchdowns if you do not have to. Meanwhile, UAB, nice year last year at Akron. Akron, Cato Nelson struggling last week, got sacked 6 times. They got pummeled by Illinois 42-3. Nate Stewart really their only bright. Meanwhile, UAB, Tyler Johnston III, he's a dual threat quarterback, but he struggled as well. They barely beat Alabama State 24-19. Brad, when you see a team like UAB who lost a lot of personnel and then struggle mightily as a big favorite at home against an FCS team, you kind of have to gauge into it. Now, one thing you do better than anybody is you follow those FCS teams. So give me a breakdown now, UAB going to Akron, because this is a tough one for me, so I just stayed away.
Yeah, the reality is Alabama State's not very good, KT. I mean, UAB was a 40-point favorite in that one, and they benefited from a 98-yard kick return touchdown. So it wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. Now you're going to lay nearly double digits on the road against an Akron team. I'm leaning with the Zips.
JD?
UAB.
There you go.
That's it. Just going for the Blazers, huh?
Absolutely.
All right. Now we've got Army, and this is a Monken-led team that had trouble with Rice at home. I mean, this was a nip-and-tuck game. I watched that game, and I kept waiting for Army to do something. Whenever they were in a situation where they had to pass the ball, Hopkins struggles to throw the football. There's no question. Kelvin Hopkins, a better runner. But Monken uses his chart, and whenever he has a 4th and 1, doesn't matter really where he is on the field, he goes for it. That's his analytical thing, where they're saying, hey, go for it. Well, they went for it in the first half on their own 15-yard line. I don't care analytics or what. I don't care 4th and 1. If you just went on 3rd and 1.5 and you gained a half yard, it's 4th and 1. The middle linebacker, first of all, for Rice played an outstanding game, but Army had a lot of trouble. They barely won that game. Right now, they're going into the Big House to take on Michigan. That linebacker, by the way, for Rice was Antonio Montero, and that guy was outstanding. Had 11 tackles and 7 solo tackles there. But I just don't see that same cast of characters with Hopkins as far as this run game. And so even though I'm not sold on Michigan's run game, Charbonnet got off to a good start last week. He did have 90 yards on 8 carries. You have Christian Turner back, Tariq Black there to receive some passes there from Shea Patterson. I'm looking at this Michigan team. If they can get off to a good start, I think they can blow out Army. The thing is, if Army's able to hang around in the first quarter, then, of course, they're running the ball and the clock's continuing to run. And with this team, unlike last year, Brad, that clock does continue to run because they had trouble getting first downs. They were able to pick them up, put them down last year, where the clock did stop a lot because they got a lot of big gainers, but not so last week.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I would prefer to get involved in this game in-game live, and all I need pretty much is 2 possessions. First possession of Army, first possession of Michigan will tell me pretty much all I need to know about this game. The public seems to be wanting to go on the Army side because everyone brings up, well, Army almost beat Oklahoma last year. And now you're getting 3+ touchdowns against a Michigan team that just disappointed last week. Difference is Michigan can play defense. Oklahoma couldn't get off the field. I think Michigan can. I lean Michigan here.
JD?
I like Michigan. I think that DPJ, Tariq Black, Nico Collins, they gave up 70 yards last week on the against the run. I don't see Army being able to pass the ball. They just have significantly better athletes on both sides of the ball. I like Michigan by 30+ in this game.
All right, then Vandy, of course, they had the fun task, even though they were at home, opening at home against Georgia. And Brad will tell you, look, when you have a team like Alabama or Georgia or Florida coming into Nashville, it's not that home field advantage that people think it is. And Georgia had a ton of fans there last week. Now, Riley Neal, Deuce Wallace, these guys there for Vandy, both played quarterback. Neal got the bulk of the action, but struggled mightily. Keshawn Vaughn, who's their stud running back, he combined for 99 or 98 yards via the ground and via the airwaves. But Vandy struggled offensively to do anything. Now, Deshaun Jenkins played a great game defensively for the Doors as he had 14 tackles, 10 of those solo. Meanwhile, Purdue, they're wondering what the hell happened out in Nevada. Look, things happen. It wasn't Area 51, but Purdue swears something happened that was crazy. They were up big on Nevada throughout that game, but the Wolfpack found a way not only to come back and get the equalizer late in the game, but then somehow get the ball back after an interception by Sindelar, who was outstanding in the first half. Sindelar throwing for over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 2 picks, and that second one costly. Why? Because Nevada was able to get a 56-yard field goal as time expired, and the Wolfpack stunned Purdue and just shocked him. And right now, Jeff Brom saying, man, we got to be better, and we got to be careful when we're passing from our own 29-yard line inside the last half minute of regulation, Brad. I thought too risky. The way momentum was going, you're better off.
Just go to overtime.
Go to OT. You know you have Sindelar. You know you have guys like David Bell and Rondale Moore. You have better playmakers, so go to the extra session.
Yeah, and he was disappointed. It looked like he was very disappointed himself in the play calling. You know what I think happened with Purdue last week? Same thing happened to Michigan State, fourth quarter last year at Arizona State. First time a lot of these players are playing in their entire lifetime. We're talking past midnight Eastern Standard Time when the fourth quarter hit in that game. Because if you watch the first 2.5, 3 quarters of it, it was all Purdue. 24-7 at halftime, 31-14 late third quarter. Just a game that just got away from them. And because of that, I think there's value on Purdue. And also it's a Vanderbilt team. Could be a little beaten up after playing a very physical Georgia team. Give me the Boilermakers here minus the points.
I like the over.
There you go.
All right, the over right now. Let's go back on a couple of those. We told you Virginia Tech here at CGT, 28.5 pretty much everywhere else. Total is 56.5. UAB and Akron, it is UAB -9. Total is 46. Army at Michigan minus 22.5. Total is 48. And then Vanderbilt at Purdue, the Boilermakers at home in West Lafayette, -7. Total is 55.5. Let's move on to Rutgers, who had a big-time second quarter last week and the last 3 quarters as they came back against UMass. They had Brad Powers tripping out because Brad Powers had a very big ticket on Rutgers, and he got a great number. In fact, that line moved more than a touchdown, but Brad had the early number, had a big ticket on it. Lo and behold, Rutgers was trailing 21-7. And for those that got to the dance late, well, they were laying, anywhere 16, 15. They were right now
almost
going,
17.
Yeah, and they were saying, what happened with Brad Powers? Wait, this is his big play. Lo and behold, Rutgers really turned it on. Chris Ash able to breathe a sigh of relief as they blew out the Minutemen, beat up on UMass big time. 41-0 run, and that was huge. Now they go to Iowa, so we'll find out what Ferentz's boys are made of here. You have Nathan Stanley, senior linebacker, is back. Mekhi Sargent, pretty good playmaker. But you lose a bunch of guys, including 2 of the better tight ends on any one team. 3 receivers in all. Iowa really hurting there. Iowa -19 here at CGT. Brad, total of 48.
Yeah, I actually like the over a little bit here. I look at Iowa, and they don't have the same defensive guys, especially up front, that they had a year ago. And I think offensively, with the Texas Tech transfer at quarterback, whether it's good or bad, I think he's kind of a big play type of guy. He's very pro your team, and also threw a couple of costly interceptions last week. McLean Carter, the new quarterback for Rutgers. I like the over more than anything. I'm not willing to lay 3 touchdowns in a conference opener.
Iowa has they actually have probably the best wide receiver core I've seen them have in the last 10 or 15 years. But they let Blaine Gabbert's little brother, Brad Gabbert, I believe, pretty much tear them up defensively. I think losing Amani Hooker was a big deal. They're not as good against the pass as they usually are. And Rutgers, that quarterback, what was his completion percentage, 75% or something last week? That's going to continue this week against Iowa.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, I will tell you this. J.D. hails from the state of Iowa, so for him to go against the Hawkeyes, here's a guy that, he's going to look at Iowa State, he's going to look at Iowa, and he knows these teams. He's been watching them for years. So, and we'll look forward to that matchup coming up. It's in Ames this year, is it not?
I believe it's in Ames,
Iowa
yes.
State, it's next week.
Okay, looking forward to that one. All right, and again, that line right now as we look up is -19, and the total is 48. Here at CGT, though, it is 48.5. There's a couple shops that have 48.5. Big game, Syracuse, Maryland. Syracuse offense struggling last week. Tommy DeVito not sharp. Couple interceptions, threw for 176. Mo Neal, he had it going on both ways. He had 3 receptions for 54 out of the backfield, 14 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Abdul Adams also in that backfield had a touchdown. Riley, Harris, 2 guys that combined for 85 yards, but 88 yards in penalties. That's not good. They did outgain Liberty by 134 yards, but still not good enough. Now, they did have 8 sacks, gave up 2, so you like to see that, the Cuse defense getting after the quarterback of Liberty. Meanwhile, Maryland, Josh Jackson had a nice game, 245 yards and 4 touchdowns, but that was against Howard. 623 yards, 4, only gave up 68, 24-4 in first downs. But this is going up in class. Mike Loxley, his track record as a head coach, not too good. Was over there with Saban's boys for a while, but we remember the days at New Mexico. This guy was lucky to win a game.
I'm not a big Mike Loxley fan. We'll see. All the money's come in on Maryland all week. I mean, this is one where the line flipped from Syracuse favorite to Maryland favorite. And at the current number, I'd actually lean with the orange. And I think the mispricing here is a Syracuse defense that doesn't get enough respect. Everyone thinks offense with Dino Babers. Defensively shut out a pretty decent Liberty offense a week ago. I lean with the orange.
I like the under in this game. Maryland scored 79 points last week. Syracuse is going to have some issues offensively against Maryland.
There you go. All right, that total 58. So I can understand that as well. And Syracuse, their offense struggling against Liberty. Maryland at home, and we know that they played Texas real well 2 years in a row, taking care of business against Herman's boys. So we'll wait and see how this one pans out. But right now, Maryland -1.5 here at CGT. 58 is the total. We are live at Legacy Stadium in the beautiful Palazzo. If you come on down, you'll see the SportsX radio signs outside the Palazzo studio. Venetian, Palazzo. It is top of the line. I mean, just looking at the floors, I mean, how perfectly. I mean, you can eat off these floors. It's absolutely incredible, and just so much money that's been put into this place. Sheldon Adelson, this is his pride and joy. This is his property, his creme de la creme, and it is one of the nicest spots in all Las Vegas and in all of the state of Nevada. We are live here, 101.5 on the FM side, 720 on the AM side. Ken Thomson, Brad Powers is with me. Follow him on Twitter at BradPowers7. That's the number 7. And JD Sharp. I'm JD Sharp. I am JD Sharp, right?
That is correct.
Just wanted to make sure I had that right. It's not I am, it's I'm.
Right, it's I'm.
Sharp. There you go. And for a Jersey guy, we shorten everything there. All right, West Virginia, Missouri. Mizzou. Boy, they had a good game as far as yardage, but, man, turnover bit them in the bugaboo last week as they end up losing straight up to Wyoming that was able to run the ball in the second half fairly well. Mizzou right now laying 13.5 at home against a West Virginia team that couldn't run the ball last week.
Yep.
Found a way to get it done against James Madison, but only rushed 24 carries, 34 yards. Austin Kendall leads the Mountaineers under Neil Brown. Brown making his inaugural season debut last week for the Mountaineers. Petway and McCoy, these two guys, 20 carries for 31 yards last week for West Virginia. That won't get it done in Columbia. Kelly Bryant had a nice game, threw for 423 yards, a transfer from Clemson. Larry Roundtree III, however, who I like as a running back, really struggled. 15 carries, 41 yards. Tyler Beatty as well, 16 carries, 53 yards. Not the greatest stats. Alberto needs to really pick it up as far as being that playmaker. We know he's one of the best tight ends in the country, and I'm looking forward to him having a big game tomorrow. Cale Garrett, by the way, tackling machine for Mizzou on D. 16 tackles, 12 of them solo. But, man, I tell you what, they struggled as far as that turnover department. Missouri, -13.5, Brad, against West Virginia at home in Columbia.
Yeah, I like Missouri here, minus the points. You mentioned those turnovers. I would argue those 3 turnovers last week that Missouri had against Wyoming, the 3 biggest plays of the game. I mean, one was a fumble return touchdown. One was an interception in the end zone that prevented another scoring opportunity for Missouri. And then I would say the biggest point spread play of week 1. It's the final play of the half. Missouri's at the Wyoming 1-yard line looking to punch it in, take some momentum into the half. So what do? They fumble the football. Wyoming returns it. Kelly Bryant tackles the guy from behind, and it's a horse collar. So the half can't end on a defensive penalty. So what happens? Wyoming ends up kicking a field goal. It's a 10-point play on the final play of the half where it should be Missouri 7-0. It's Wyoming 3-0. So because of that, I think there's value here on the Tigers. I like the Tigers.
Yeah, I agree with Brad 100%. Kelly Bryant is an outstanding quarterback. They've got several weapons, including Albert O at tight end, who actually averaged 24 yards a catch last week, so he didn't play terrible. I do worry about, Missouri gave up 297 yards on the ground, but considering how poor West Virginia ran the ball, it shouldn't be an issue. I like the over, but I also like Missouri.
There you go. I'm going with Mizzou as well, so that makes it unanimous here. Trifecta, Missouri -13.5 total, 62.5 from Columbia, Missouri. Cincinnati at Ohio State. Luke Fickell, of course, the head coach for Cincinnati's Bearcats, was coaching there at Ohio State, defensive coordinator there for a while as well, played there as well, so he knows all about the horseshoe. Now can he get his team? And young quarterback Desmond Ridder, who had some nice games last year in an 11-win season, 11-2 the Bearcats last year. Can they continue? Can they make a splash there and get a huge win? And it would be a major feather in the cap of Luke Fickell. Mike Warren, the second, very solid running back, had a nice game last week, 119 yards total offense, rushed for 92 and a touchdown, also had a receiving touchdown. Dokes is banged up, so he may not be able to go. He's the one that splits time at times in games with Michael Warren, but Warren really is the workhorse. I like Ritter too. He's a moxie quarterback. He's struggled early out of the gate against UCLA, but really got it together last week in the second half and put things together. Meanwhile, Justin Fields made his debut for Ohio State, and he got off to a great start. It was 28-0 before you could, blink your eye and say, wow, Ohio State's going to win this game 70-0. Not the case. They end up winning 45-21 over Florida Atlantic. Do not cover the game against Lane Kiffin's squad. Do bring back J.K. Dobbins, one of the better running backs in the country, 91 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Master Teague III, is a guy that has made a splash in Ohio State's backfield as well. They do have a couple real solid receivers in Mack and Hill, and some new guys as well that got into the mix. Young and Harrison, they combined for a few sacks last week for the Buckeyes. Brad, your take on this one, Ohio State. The money's coming in on Cincinnati. It is 16 here at CGT, but there are some 15.5s popping up. Ohio State the favorite. They started a bigger favorite than that. Total is 52.
Yeah, I lean with the money here. I lean with the Cincinnati Bearcats, a team that I expect to play with a chip on their shoulder in this game, especially Luke Fickell, a guy that spent nearly 2 decades in Columbus, either as a player, assistant coach, interim head coach. I think Cincinnati, with that chip on their shoulder, keeps it within the number here.
Yeah, interesting spread. This is I'm not going to play this. I'm not going to touch it. But Ohio State is actually not that they have a huge advantage athletically at corner and defensively. I'm not a huge fan of Cincinnati's weapons, but Ritter's he's an accurate quarterback. They do need that second running back. It's kind of a no play for me, but I would probably lean Ohio State.
There you go. I lean Cincinnati, so I'm with you, Brad. I'm hoping that the Bearcats at least get one of those first 2 scores. There's certain games when teams that are capable go into a venue like the Horseshoe, and if they can just get one of the first 2 scores to kind of get the jitters out, not look up and see 14-0 or 10-0 down double digits, if they can do that, I think the Bearcats have a great chance to hang in the game. Would not shock me. Again, I don't know how good Fields is. He got off to that great start. But would not shock me if the Bearcats play their A game, if they came out with a straight-up victory. We'll wait and see how things pan out. Hey, you just never know. That's why you sprinkle a little on the money line sometimes.
You want to sprinkle? What is the money line right now? I'll book a bet.
There you go. Well, you know what? We'll check that because I don't want to get off the screen right now. Are you seeing it, JD?
I see it at plus 575.
Plus 575.
6-1. You got it.
6-1. 6-1 KT, boy. That's 6-1. How about just a 50 spot? 6-1. So I'll take that 300. Yep. There you go. We'll do that. We'll have. I open my mouth, so Brad will make me pay. When I do that, he'll say, "All right, KT, I got you covered." Real quick, before we take our first break, Bowling Green. That is Brad's alma mater. Yes, Mr. Valedictorian at Bowling Green, taking on Kansas State. They're in the Little Apple against Kelly in Vegas. Yes, her alma mater. 24.5 here at CGT. A lot of 25s around town. K-State the favorite. Of course, no more Snyder. His 2 tenures are over, and 58.5 is the total against Bowling Green. 25. Your guys scored some points last week.
Did.
Darius Wade, the transfer from Boston College, put up 3 touchdown passes. Andrew Clare out of the backfield, 14 carries, 86 yards. Also, Kansas State, Skylar Thompson still there running the show. And James Gilbert had a nice game, 115 on the ground and a touchdown. Your take, can your boys cover the big number?
Yeah, I think they can. What surprised me last week was offensively. They looked competent. I know they weren't playing anybody. It was Morgan State, but they ran 95 plays, KT. And with that up-tempo, I think they're perfectly capable of getting a backdoor cover here. I like the Falcons.
Yeah, up-tempo, Brad, is nice if you don't have too many 3-and-outs.
Skylar Thompson's not a great thrower, and Bowling Green played really well defensively against the run last week. Kansas State relies on the run a lot. I like Bowling Green as well.
There you go. All right, so we will take a break. When we come back, we pick it up with Northern Illinois against the winners of the Holy War, the Utah Utes. They are home at Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City. It is SportsX Radio, the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN. It is Ken Thomson, Brad Powers, J.D. Sharp. We are rolling the Friday football fiasco live at Legacy Stadium, the beautiful Venetian Palazzo. We'll be right back. Keep it here. Hit me with some Black Label Society and some Ozzy during the Zach Wilde era. We are live, of course, having a wild night ourselves over at the Venetian Palazzo. We are inside Legacy Stadium, one of the greatest venues in all the land and in the entire country entire world, really, as far as to watch sports venues, get the great food out of Emeril Lagasse's kitchen, and, of course, you can make your wagers right there at the Cantor Gaming facility right downtown. It's downstairs. It's a couple levels. It's beautiful. It's just top of the line.
And the patio, you can see the patio from the strip. I mean, this place should be packed every single day. I'm shocked that it's not.
No, and we're going to make sure that it is. That's our job here at SportsX Radio. Remember, when you come in, just say KDWN or SportsX Radio, and Brian's the GM. You'll get your first draft, Bud Light draft, or your first glass of house wine on the house, and that is courtesy of Lagasse Stadium. Let me see. I'm trying to remember what that house wine was, but it's a Chardonnay and or a Cabernet, so you can order any of those, because I know sometimes people would rather have the wine instead of the beer, but the Bud Light draft as well. Just mention KDWN, KDawn, or Ken Thomson Show, SportsX Radio, and of course Fridays here with Brad Powers. And welcome to JD Sharp, making his debut on the Friday Football Fiasco right here live in Vegas. Let's continue with the college football, because we got 33 games to get to and about 8 minutes to do it, so we'll try and pull it off here. Northern Illinois, yes, Ross Bowers, the quarterback from Cal. You're wondering where he went. That's where he went, to DeKalb. He left Cal for DeKalb. And Bowers, 299 via the airways, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception last week. Harbison very solid on the ground. Meanwhile, Utah, nice second half effort against BYU in Provo. Huntley putting it together, dual threat, but really just handing it off to Zach Moss, who had 187 and a touchdown on the ground. It's a good, solid Utah team with one of the best, if not the best, defensive line in the country. Brad, right now, Utah at home minus 21.5. There's some 22s out here as well, but Cantor Gaming has a 21.5, total 44 from Rice Eccles.
Yeah, big number to lay with a low total, especially with total right around, 43.5, 44 KT. So tough to lay that kind of number, but what the hell? I'll go ahead and do so. In this case, you look at Utah, you mentioned the defensive line, the very impressive opening win. I don't think Northern Illinois is going to be that good when it's all said and done this season. And I think last year's game, if you go back to it, very competitive. That should focus Utah. And only Idaho State on deck should focus Utah here. A couple extra days to prep. Give me the Utes.
Yeah, I see a 31-7 Utah win. I like this under. I watched Ross Bauer play a couple of times at Cal. He can't score. He runs the ball a lot. He takes up a lot of time. I like the under in this game.
I actually did like him better than Gerbers. That's
last year I did.
Yeah, we'll wait and see how things pan out. But Northern Illinois, as good as they are outside the MAC, when they take on some of the big boys, they usually cover. But this team,
they beat BYU outright in Utah last year.
There you go. I downgrade this team though. Compared to last year. We'll wait and see how things pan out. But right now, Utah, 21.5, total 44 here at Cantor Gaming. South Florida still trying to score their first point. Blake Barnett and company had no clue. Jordan McLeod got in late, 3 for 3, 22 yards, rushed for 17. You wonder if there'll be a quarterback switch. Georgia Tech, I thought they moved the ball rather well, and they weren't intimidated against Clemson. They did rush the ball pretty well. James Graham came on for Tobias Oliver. We'll wait and see how that pans out. Jerry Howard, pretty solid as far as receiving the football. 2 receptions, 59 yards. This is not the same Paul Johnson, just run the option Georgia Tech team. They are at home. They are -6, total of 60 against South Florida.
Yeah, I lean with the under actually a little bit here, and start with South Florida getting a goose egg last week. Georgia Tech transitioning to a new offense. I really can't play the side. I want nothing to do with South Florida, and I want nothing to do with laying points right now with Georgia Tech early in the season, so I lean with the under.
Yeah, I watched South Florida's receivers drop 2 touchdown passes, easy touchdown passes against Wisconsin. Georgia Tech looked, granted they were playing Clemson. Maybe Jonathan Taylor's just that good for Wisconsin. But yeah, I'm with you, Brad. I really can't feasibly make a play on this game, but the under seems to make some sense.
Yep.
I will say that. I agree with you. Blake Barnett, 4 or 5 passes dropped in that game, but still Wisconsin got it rolling behind the machine, Jonathan Taylor. All right, move on down. Next game, we've got Tulsa and San Jose State. Tulsa, another team, couldn't run the ball. Well, that's because I think they're playing the top defense, or one of the top 3 defenses in the country in Michigan State. Zach Smith, 153 yards and a touchdown and interception, but Shamari Brooks, their main guy in the backfield, 6 carries, 0 yards. That's right, 0 yards. They had 80 total yards when you include the sack yardage. San Jose State, meanwhile, they get a win over Northern Colorado, not Well, it depends. They did cover, and then they didn't cover. It just depends when you played it, because that line went up, I think, to 17.5. But they covered most numbers. Josh Love, not a bad effort. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You'll take that. Nick Nash out of the backfield, 67 yards. Brad, your take here. San Jose State is at home right now. Tulsa staying steady, and this line has stayed steady at 6.5, total of 53.
Yeah, I'd lean with Tulsa. I mean, kudos to the Hurricane last week for covering a game where they had minus 73 yards rushing, and you cover a football game. I kind of lean with them here. I also lean with the over.
Yeah, how did Zach Smith go 10 attempts for minus 32? That's pretty impressive. I'm going to take Tulsa in this situation. That's just unreasonable what happened last week.
Real quick on the Rich Badge and Finley Toyota out-of-town scoreboard. Just update the college football right now. 14-7 Boise State. 7:15 to go fourth quarter. Laying 12 went up to 14 today. Total 58.5. So you need a touchdown extra point just to push if you got there to the dance late. Rice got a late touchdown, and they pushed the closing number of 20, opening number 19.5, fall short there. The total was 55.5, bet up to 59. The money went the right way. The last Rice touchdown put it up and over. 41-21, the final. Wake Forest knocks off Rice. On the extra games, all Virginia as they roll over William and Mary. And they do cover the 31.5, winning by 35, 52-17, the final there. Game sailing over the total of 51.5 and 3-0. Third quarter, early action. Arizona State struggling mightily against the Hornets of Cal State, Sacramento. Sac State hanging in there. How about this total? 63.5. Would you like to have the under in this one? Arizona State laying 35 on the closing number, leading 3-0 third quarter, early third quarter. We'll keep an eye on it. SportsX Radio as we roll on through and get back into the college action. And we've got Nebraska and Colorado, a Nebraska team that did okay defensively and on special teams as far as scoring. But, man, offensively, Adrian Martinez struggling mightily. Didn't have an A game, that's for sure. 178 yards passing, no touchdowns and an interception, and he didn't have his normal day rushing. Now, Stahl, the tight end, and Spielman, 5 receptions, 102 yards. Colorado, on the other hand, Montez, 2 touchdowns, no picks against Colorado State, but they were fortunate because they were really in a dogfight and probably lose the game if they don't get the takeaways. They got 4 takeaways, none for Colorado State. The difference in that game is they win it by they end up covering the game, I think.
Yeah, they won by 21.
But very deceiving, though, Brad.
Colorado State moved up and down the field. If it's not for turnovers, I mean, Colorado State probably puts 40 points on the board. Now, on the other side, Nebraska didn't look well at all. I mean, they scored 3 non-offensive touchdowns and still only beat South Alabama by 14, a game they were laying 5 touchdowns in. But with that being said, I trust Scott Frost to make the corrections this week, the adjustments. I like Nebraska. I bet Nebraska. Best bet Huskers. And when you flip on the TV, KT, on Saturday afternoon tomorrow, there's going to be half the crowd in red. That's not getting priced into this marketplace. I go Big Red here.
Yeah, they estimated that 40,000 Huskers fans bought tickets to a stadium that is 53,000. Do the math, that's 80%.
Yeah.
Nebraska has an extremely underrated defense. I think their cornerbacks can handle Chenault, Boodle, Lamar Jackson. Now, I think Adrian Martinez has put on some weight, and it's affected his speed. He's not the same QB that he was last year. I don't think he has any shot of winning the Heisman. I think that he doesn't have a lot of weapons at wide receiver, but I like Nebraska and the under in this game.
And, of course, Maurice Washington, it was a game-time decision. Didn't know because the court stuff that he was facing back in California. I think he'll breathe a sigh of relief. Now he knows that is behind him, and he's going to go in focus for this game. Colorado also had a big game from Fontenot in the backfield, 125 yards and 3 touchdowns in the win against CSU. Texas A&M Clemson, another big game, huge game. Death Valley here at CGT down to 16.5. Still some 17s out there if you like the Aggies. 63 the total. This should be a good game. Kellen Mond, the blue-collar quarterback, nearly engineered a win against Clemson last year in College Station. You've got Corbin and Spiller in the backfield. Davis and Osmond, pretty good receivers for the Aggies. They need to come up big defensively against Sunshine. Got to slow down Trevor Lawrence. And really, Travis Etienne, 12 carries, 205, 3 touchdowns in the debut against Georgia Tech last week. Boy, it's tough to stop that running game. Lawrence didn't have great stats. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Something tells me he'll be focused, but I think the Aggies can hang around.
Yeah, I think so too. I like Texas A&M here. I don't think there's going to be an intimidation factor. They went toe-to-toe with Clemson a year ago, could have easily won that game. Jimbo Fisher's not going to be intimidated by coaching up against Clemson after being the head coach of Florida State for 8 years. So, and I think Kellen Mond's the nation's going to find out how good Kellen Mond is by the end of this game, because if he continues to show improvement like he did in week 1 coming off the offseason, I think this could be a nip and tuck game to the end. Give me the Aggies.
I actually like Clemson. I think the line doesn't make any sense. They won by 2 points last year. Now they're 18-point favorites this year after Trevor Lawrence.
Well, they were laying double digits last year.
I agree. After Trevor Lawrence looked pretty questionable last week, I think there's a giant talent discrepancy. I think A.J. Terrell's going to match up really well with their wide receivers. I think they're defensively they match up really well. I like Clemson in this game.
And, of course, Renfro suspended for A&M, one of their better defensive backs, so that could come into play as well. Central Michigan, they have the fun task of going into Camp Randall, where I've been, and I love that place. It's a great tradition. Jack Cohn, he did what he needed to do, threw for a couple touchdowns. Both of those to Jonathan Taylor at 2 receptions, 48 yards, those 2 touchdowns, but 135 on the ground, another 2 touchdowns, 49-0. Little deceiving on the score against South Florida. South Florida probably should have scored a couple TDs. For Central Michigan, they beat Albany 38-21. Dormady threw for 3 touchdowns, 285 to lead the Chips. Brad, your take on this one. Wisconsin at home at Camp Randall, minus 34.5, 53. You can find 35 if you like Central Mich here in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, it's too many points for me to lay. I actually lean with the over here. Wisconsin, to me, those 300-pound offensive linemen, they wear down in the fourth quarter. Jonathan Taylor, even if Wisconsin's not trying to run it up, they can find themselves a long fourth quarter touchdown run or two. And I'll say this, Central Michigan's offense is night and day better than what it was a year ago. I like the over.
I totally agree. I'm on the over 100%. Wisconsin outweighs Central Michigan's O-lineman or D-lineman by about 50 or 60 pounds a man, which is unbelievable. And Jonathan Taylor, he looked like he ran about a 4.31 last week. I mean, he looked like a machine. He wins the Heisman, in my opinion. But yeah, I like the over. And Scott Nelson is out for Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, not just Scott Nelson. Let me just run this down real quick. Logan Bruss, right tackle, is out. Chris Orr, linebacker, is also out. And Scott Nelson, their free safety, is also out there for Wisconsin. So just get those in there. Those guys are all out now. 2 of them were questionable coming into the day, but they are out. UNC Charlotte, Appalachian State, Mountaineers at home, Boone, North Carolina, minus 22, total of 54. Boy, Zach Thomas has his work cut out for him there for Charlotte. Threw for 150 and 2 touchdowns last week. Evans 99 and a touch on the ground, but I'm not sold that Charlotte's going to be able to hang around in Boone, North Carolina. App State's a pretty good program there, Brad.
Yeah, even with a new coach, didn't look like they would miss a beat last week. Lean App State here.
I would literally be lying if I claimed I knew anything about either of these teams. I know nothing.
You know Appalachian State. They beat Michigan 7 years ago.
I know Dexter Coakley went to Appalachian State.
There you go. Southern Miss. Boys from Hattiesburg. Brett Favre's alma mater, of course. They beat up on Alcorn State last week. Jack Abram threw for 293, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Mitchell had 133 out of the backfield. Taking on Mississippi State, they win by 10 against UL Lafayette. Tommy Stevens, the Penn State transfer, now there with his coach, Coach Moorhead, giving him the opportunity there. Cyrus Mitchell had a nice game, 6 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. But let's see what Mississippi State has against Southern Miss, an in-state game right here. And right now, the Bulldogs favored in Starkville by 16.5, total of 51, Brad.
Yeah, I like the over. I think Mississippi State's going to – and you can make money this year if you're just blindly betting Mississippi State games over. Went over last week their game against UL Lafayette. And the reason behind it is I think Tommy Stevens is a much better fit for Joe Moorhead's offense that he wants to run. He's the former Penn State quarterback that learned under Moorhead's offense for a couple of years. And Mississippi State defensively, nowhere near the personnel that they had up front a year ago. I like the over.
Yeah, they lost about 6 players to the NFL last year, and Nick Fitzgerald was just an embarrassment. I also like the over in this game.
All right, remember, Quez Watkins still out for 1 more week, suspended for Southern Miss. Their all-everything receiver had over 800 yards, 9 touchdowns, 72 receptions last year. He'll be back next week. Next game on the docket, Illinois and UConn. Brandon Peters will lead the Illini coming off a 42-3 route. Taking care of business at home, and Bonner and Corbin doing a pretty nice job in the backfield. They go to Storrs, Connecticut, take on Mike Beaudry, the new quarterback for UConn. Randy Edsall, how this guy even has a job. I know it's his second tenure there, but this UConn team is woeful. Very fortunate to get a win over an FCS team, laying 21.5. Illinois is. Lovie Smith running the defense right now, 59.5 the total, Brad.
Yeah, 21.5. Let's talk about that point spread. The largest away favorite role for Illinois since 1991, KT. For that, I'll lean with Connecticut.
JD, you were like 3.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I was 6 years old, actually, at that time.
So you got down on it.
Yeah. Well, I bet $5 and a couple of lollipops.
Yeah.
No, Epstein's out for the season. I don't think it matters. Illinois is on a mission this year. They're tired of being made fun of in the Big Ten. And trust me, I'm from the Midwest. They're made fun of all the time. I like Illinois in this game.
All right, keep an eye on the Illini. I like this team, too. I think it's a team that can win some games inside the Big Ten as well. Arkansas State, UNLV, this is a huge game for the Rebels and Tony Sanchez. Right now, a couple of the receivers still questionable there for Arkansas State, including Merritt, one of the starters. Logan Bonner had a pretty nice game in a losing effort against SMU, threw for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Murray on the ground, pretty solid. But Bayless, the receiver, 10 receptions, 132, and 4 touchdowns leading the way. You know what? Bowling and Adams combined for another 20 receptions, 176. But they do lose the game at home to the Ponies, 37-30. We'll see what happens with UNLV. I mean, they really gave up garbage points. I know Southern Utah, but in years past, UNLV struggled with some of these teams. This is a good, solid squad, and the offensive line will be asked to take care of business. If they do, I think Charles Williams, who had 143 on the ground and 3 touchdowns last week, and Armani Rogers, who rushed for 114 and 11 carries and 2 touchdowns, I think that combination could be lethal. Look, they don't throw it the best. Rogers, 11 of 17, 144 and a touch last week, but they run it well. And Armani Rogers is a big body. He's big as far as quarterbacks go in the Mountain West, and I think UNLV's got a great chance to win this game. I respect Arkansas State's program, but this is revenge from last year. They lost by 7, and Rogers got hurt in that game last year, was out for 5 or 6 games after that. I think UNLV's going to roll in this game.
Roll.
That is a statement, KT.
All right, I'll take Arkansas State here. You want another 50?
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, we'll.
All right, yeah, I'll take Arkansas State. I think
just straight up, right? Because right now we're looking at it's a
straight
pick 'em.
up.
It's a
pick 'em.
pick 'em.
I see it at 1.5.
Well, you did say roll. You should be giving me 3.
Yeah, well, I'm
right?
saying,
at least.
When I say roll, I mean rolling right into a bowl game. So a win is a win. I'll take it.
I can
Tony
appreciate
Sanchez and the guy is going to take.
All right, I got a different bet here.
Okay.
You said bowl game, right? I'll give you 6-1 bowl game.
You got it. 6-1 for 50. There you go.
Wow, I'm all over that bet. I love Tony Sanchez as a guy. I really want them to make a bowl game. I want him to coach in the new Raiders Stadium.
You give me the 6 wins. I like Tony Sanchez too, but
Arkansas State is out. Well, they're very good passing the ball. If Merritt plays, if Dahu Green plays, I don't know if they're going to play or not. And UNLV, they gave up 2 touchdowns to Southern Utah through the air. So I think that Arkansas State probably wins this game, though.
Yeah, garbage points. And how about a second half cover, a safety, as UNLV fields the kick on the 1-yard line, steps back and downs it in the end zone. Brutal if you had UNLV's second half, or I think that might have been for the total. Texas San Antonio Baylor, as we got about 2 minutes to go here in this hour. The Roadrunners and the Bears and Charlie Brewer and company looking to take care of business, laying 57.5 here from CGT, Brad.
Just a lean on the favorite for me.
JD?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this. Brewer's been playing well.
New Mexico State, they are catching 55.5 against Alabama in Tuscaloosa, total of 65. Yeah, look, Adkins not a bad quarterback, but struggled last week. They're going to have their work cut out. But will Bama pour it on? The question is, how big a lead will they get in the first half? Tua throwing for 4 touchdowns, 336 in the 42-3 rout against Duke. You'll see probably a lot of Mac Jones, but Jerry Jeudy, Waddle, Smith, Ruggs III. I mean, best receiving core in the country, Brad.
Yeah, it's the largest point spread involving 2 FBS teams since 2013. So largest point spread in 6 years for college football. And Nick Saban, not good laying a lot of points. He's 4-12 against the spread, laying 40 or more here the last 7 years. I lean with the Aggies.
I'm just not going to take 55 points under any circumstances ever. I just refuse to do it.
I just thought you were going to lay it real quick.
Yeah, no, I won't do it.
Last game probably before we go to the break at the top. San Diego State, UCLA. UCLA, of course, getting whipped by Cincinnati. But they were missing their running back, Josh Kelly. Yep. He'll be back for this game. San Diego State, a 6-0 win last week.
Ugly.
I mean, yeah, really bad against UC Davis. So we'll see how this pans out. Weber State, sorry about that. That's right. Ryan Agnew, though, their quarterback, he did struggle. And I don't think this offense is very good. The running game, Washington is going to play as a little bit of an ankle problem, but he'll play. They already lost their backup running back for the year. I think UCLA is going to roll in this game.
Yeah, I lean with the Bruins here. I like playing on teams that look really poor. The market throws them in the trash week 1. And I didn't like what I saw from San Diego State on the offensive side of the ball. Lean with the UCLA bounce back win.
Well, why is this under not 37? Why is it 46? To me, that point total alone, considering how poorly those teams played offensively, means that UCLA is going to blow these guys out.
There you go. All right, so hour number 1 in the books. Arizona State's out of the field goal, 6-0, 9:08 to go third quarter. They lead Sac State 14-7. Boise State with 1:20 to go. We are Sports X Radio. 1 hour in the books, 1 hour to go on the Friday Football Fiasco live at the beautiful Venetian Palazzo. We are live at Legacy Stadium on the new 101.5 FM 720 AM KDWN. I'm Ken Thomson with Brad Powers, JD Sharp. We'll be right back live from Vegas.
Radio with Ken Thomson.
Come with me.
Ah, yes. Hour number 2, Friday Football Fiasco. Ken Thomson, Brad Powers, JD Sharp live at the Legacy Stadium right here at the Venetian Palazzo. And been here, I was here for about 2 years, about 3 years ago. And this studio is creme de la creme. It is top of the line. The food here is outstanding. I mean, it doesn't get any better. This is not bar food. This is just some of the best food you can get anywhere. It is a sports fans' paradise, to say the least. Legacy Stadium, the ultimate sports bar, a restaurant with stadium seating, so it features elevated game time classics and gourmet options from Emerald Lagasse. And when you get here on Monday nights and Thursday nights, as far as the football goes, they will have dishes that will coincide with the teams that are playing from those cities. So Houston and New Orleans, you'll have, some food there as far as you'll see. In fact, just let me look at it real quick. On Monday, you'll have barbecue pork with Creole mustard, coleslaw, and pickled jalapenos over sweet potato fries. That's on the Houston side. And then the andouille sausage, shrimp, and chicken in Creole Parmesan sauce over French fries from the New Orleans side of things. Meanwhile, Denver, they have lamb tenderloin sandwich with pickled red onion, arugula, lemon herb, and Creole seasoned fries. And then Oakland, the grilled New York strip with roasted cauliflower puree, sautéed haricot vert, and Emerald's homemade Worcestershire sauce with Joseph James HOP Raider. Okay, so some stuff going on. And by the way, stuff going on with the Raiders. We know Antonio Brown gave an emotional apology, was then set to be slated as far as playing on Monday night against Denver. Brad Powers, you let me know that apparently Antonio Brown also secretly filmed Coach John Gruden, and now we're seeing that there's a chance that the Raiders could suspend him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it changes his status by the hour. So, I mean, I guess stay tuned when it comes to AB.
Crazy stuff.
If he actually filmed John Gruden and did it illegally in a state where it's illegal to do that, he won't be a Raider again.
Actually, John Gruden responded already and said he liked it. So he thought it was cool. So as the world turns.
There you go. As the hard knocks continues.
Yeah. Shame they left town already.
Knock if you're with me.
Yeah.
There you go. Knock on wood if you're with me. There you go. All right. Sports X Radio rolling on through here, hour number 2, and there Chris Wynn has made it here. Wow. You've hit the big time when Chris Wynn makes it live over here at Legacy Stadium. All right, we pick it up, guys. Next game on the docket: UL Monroe and Florida State. FSU off the loss where they didn't score in the second half against Boise State, who, by the way, held on for a 14-7 win at home tonight against Marshall. James Blackman looks solid, 327, 3 touchdowns. Cam Akers, 116 on the ground, but couldn't do anything in the second half against Boise. UL Monroe comes off the 31-9 victory against Grambling. Caleb Evans, did what he needed to do, and Josh Johnson rushed for 173 and 2 touchdowns. Brad, your take on this one? FSU at home in Tallahassee, minus 22, total of 65.
Yeah, I got burned pretty good on the Noles last week, especially in the second half after a 31-13 lead in the first half of that game. But I'll go right back to the well here. I'll take the Noles. My only concern is laying 3 touchdowns plus with a defense that was on the field for 108 plays, and we'll see if they're going to be hydrated this week, KT. I mean, I guess something was wrong with the water or whatever the excuse was from Willie Taggart for what happened that second half.
Willie Taggart has a lot of excuses, JD.
2 very average defenses. UL Monroe's got a pretty solid offense, and you're right, Blackman's been playing very well. I like the over. I'm not touching the side.
Over 65 here at Canada.
Oh, it's getting bad
CGT, yeah. 65.5. Most places, CGT, you could still get a 65. Wyoming at Texas State. Sean Chambers, man, he sure didn't do much via the airwaves last week in Laramie. 6 for 16, 92 yards, but he rushed for 120, including a 75-yard touchdown run. Valladay also had 118 and a touchdown for the Pokes. 37-31, they knock off Mizzou. They got outgained 537 to 389, but 3-0 in the turnover category helped them get the win. Texas State, Jensen, a late touchdown pass, and that, or actually pass to Graham, and that helped Texas State for some backers as they lost to A&M 41-7. Depends when and where you played that game. Brad Powers, Wyoming at home or on the road right now at Texas State, but they're a 7-point favorite, 47.5.
Yeah, flat spot for Wyoming off the big outright upset win traveling to Texas State here. I lean with the Bobcats.
47.5. I like the under.
All right. North Texas Southern Methodist, SMU at home. Buechele threw for 360, no touchdowns and an interception, but they got the win against Ark State, outgaining them 508 to 414. Xavier Jones, Kamon Freeman on the ground, not bad, but Reggie Roberson, really 11 receptions, 180 yards. Didn't get a touchdown. Now go against Mason Fine, a very solid quarterback there for the Mean Green. Threw for 383, 4 touchdowns against Abilene Christian, but they didn't cover that game. In fact, they gave up 456 yards. I see that. I'm thinking over right away. Total is up there, 73. Yeah. So the SMU -3 at home. What about it, Brad?
I lean with SMU here. I liked what I saw on the road in a very tough place to play, Arkansas State last week. I'll take the Ponies here -3.
JD?
Yeah, North Texas' defense did not look good last week. I'm going to agree with Brad. I'm going to take SMU -3.5.
All right. BYU, meanwhile, losing that holy war. We'll see what happens with Zach Wilson and company. Now, remember, they have Tyson Williams, who transferred from South Carolina. Matt Bushman, pretty solid tight end. Zane Anderson, 7 tackles last week. Good to see him healthy. Tennessee, what happened? They're still wondering. Gave up 4 sacks to Georgia State and lost outright. Guarantano better get it together this week. Otherwise, Pruitt could be walking the plank early on. I mean, this was a Tennessee team where a lot was expected out of this team. And when you lose to Georgia State and get outgained on the ground at home in Knoxville, that's not good. You give them a $950,000 check, Brad, and they kick your butt at home.
Yeah, and it was legit, too, because Georgia State dominated the line of scrimmage, outrushed Tennessee more than 2-1 in that game. So, KT, my first gut instinct was, how did teams perform after losing outright as a 25-point or more favorite the next week? I thought it'd be a positive. Market's going to throw them in the trash. They're going to play with a chip on their shoulder the next week. It's actually a negative. I went back the last 40 years. Teams coming off a 25-point outright loss as a big favorite. You look at it, they're only 43% against the spread. I lean with BYU.
I'm betting this game. I like Tennessee -3.5. They just have much better athletes. I thought the quarterback Guarantano was 65% last week throwing the ball. I don't think they're going to play as poorly this week.
Yeah, better not. Otherwise, you don't want to see what happens there to Jeremy Pruitt. It's not going to be good. 3.5 is the line here at CGT. There's some 4s out there if you like BYU. Total of 53. UCF with Wimbush, who started the game. Gabriel came in, looked sharp, threw 3 touchdowns as well.
Better.
Yeah, could be a sign of the times there as he really adapted to that offense. Chris Robeson, the quarterback for FAU, got things going. And, in fact, a sneaky come-from-behind backdoor cover against Ohio State. They did have 2 sacks on Fields there for the Buckeyes as well, but only 228 as far as yardage. But it took them about a quarter and a half to get in the positive side of yardage, Brad. It was crazy.
Yeah, first 8 drives for FAU, -34 yards, total yards for FAU. I know it's a high total, but I like the over here. This is the UCF program that scored at least 30 points in 27 straight games. That's the longest streak in college football since 1936. Over for me.
I like Florida Atlantic in this game, +10. I think they cover another week after covering against Ohio State. And, again, both offenses are actually pretty decent. Robeson did look good, and obviously UCF, they score at will.
Western Kentucky, not the same team since Brom left there a few years back. They lost last week, got outscored 21-0, lose to Central Arkansas at home. Not good. Duncan, the quarterback, 304, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Meanwhile, Gage Walker had a nice game, 152 and 2 touchdowns on the ground for FIU. Boy, they got pummeled. I mean, maybe not stat-wise, but they just fell behind and just could never get back in the game.
Oh, it was stat-wise, too.
Yeah, Tulane really took it to him. James Morgan, not a great game. They're going to need to play much better. Thomas Oliver did have a nice game with 8 solo tackles there for FIU, but, man, they're going to have to do something different. Western Kentucky at the Panthers, FIU laying 8 right now, total of 57, Brad.
Yeah, I like the over here. Bet the over, one of my favorite totals plays of the week. And what I saw from Western Kentucky, a much improved offense from the last couple of years. That there was a reason why they fired Mike Sanford. So offense looked improved. They gained nearly 500 yards. Defensively, though, Western Kentucky gave up 14 yards per pass to Central Arkansas. Like the over, guys.
Western Kentucky, +8.
There you go. All right. So a Hilltopper fan in the house. Coastal Carolina going to take on Kansas. Kansas fortunate to hold off Indiana State. Now, they played without Puka Williams, who's reinstated for this one. And I'm telling you, this is by far their best athlete on the team. This guy can make a difference. There's no question. They'll take on Coastal Carolina. And Fred Payton, the quarterback, had a nice game. Threw for 304 and 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. That's not going to get it done. We'll see how they do in Lawrence. Kansas laying 7, total 53.5. With Puka Williams in the lineup, I think 7 is a number that Kansas can cover, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers come way down. It's kind of a pass for me at this point. I actually agreed with the money on Coastal Carolina. Very misleading loss at home to Eastern Michigan last week. A game they could have easily won. Pass for me.
I've got the under 54 in that game.
All right, Liberty at UL Lafayette. UL Lafayette losing by 10 to Mississippi State. 5 turnovers. That hurts. They got 2, but still -3 in the turnover department. Levi Lewis, not a bad game. Threw for 267 and a touchdown pass, but 2 interceptions. Rushed for another touchdown. Elijah Mitchell, their starting running back, really struggled. 14 carries, just 31 yards on the ground, where Calais and Ragas actually had 143 yards on 17 carries. You may see a switch there in the backfield. Calvert, not a great game for Liberty. They got shut out, of course, at home by Syracuse. We'll see if they can get things going. The running game was absolutely atrocious. Hickson had 11 carries, just 29 yards for Liberty. In this game, Liberty at UL Lafayette is 14 even. UL Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, laying 14, 65.5, Brad.
Yeah, 14, I'd lean with Liberty. I think the market throws a team in the trash after they get shut out the week prior. Although there might be a reason when your head coach is coaching from a hospital bed. I mean, that might be a reason why your offense got shut out.
Hugh Freeze, they kept looking for the plays at the side. They had to look up in the hospital bed. There you go. What about it, JD?
Over 65.5, KT.
John Wassing, pretty good quarterback for the Broncos of Western Mich. They'll go into Michigan State. Can they run the ball? I don't know. This Spartan defense, pretty solid. They struggled running the ball themselves. Cam Hayward last week didn't do that well. Lewerke, one thing he did do, he threw it to the guys in green and white. No interceptions. That's huge. Last year, 8 touchdowns, 11 picks. Threw for 1 touchdown last week. Wassing actually had a great combination with Ricci and Bussell, combining for 10 catches, 213 and 2 touchdowns for the Broncos in the game. Michigan State minus 16 big ones, 46.5, Brad.
Tough to lay this kind of number when you had a Michigan State team last week that benefited from basically everything from their defense. A fumble recovery in the end zone for a touchdown, a safety. They set up 3 short drives where Michigan State got 3 field goals off of exactly a combined 0 yards of total offense. And still Michigan State couldn't cover. I'm not sure they can cover this one.
I like Michigan State 24-21 Western Michigan.
Wow.
They definitely cover the 16.5 and it goes under.
There you go. All right, I'm going to look at Western Michigan a little closer. JD sharp on that one. All right, LSU at Texas. Line is staying steady at 6.5. Some places got to 7 for just a minute, and then the sharp bettors probably jumped on that, pushed it right back down to 6.5. Total is 57 everywhere here in Vegas. This game from Austin and Joe Burrow and company opening up. Major victory, scoring 55 points, but playing Georgia Southern, not the same Georgia Southern team we've seen from years past. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, pretty good game on the ground. John Emery, brief action there. Jefferson and Moss, very solid in the receiving core, and Jacob Phillips leads that defense. Texas, Ellinger's a real deal. Can he get some help on the ground? Last week, Ingram did a pretty good job. Eagles also helped out Colin Johnson, Devin Duvernay as far as receiving the football. You had McCulloch and Stearns, 8 tackles, 6 solo each. Brad Powers, big game, one of the biggest games on the docket. LSU minus 6.5 in Austin, Texas.
Whoa. I think you should go to JD first on this
one,
because he made a comment before the show that's going to shock a lot of people.
I did. I think that LSU is the most complete team in the country. They beat a Georgia Southern team 58 or 55-3 with pretty much no effort across the board. Divinity was gone. Charles was gone. I have LSU winning this game by about 10 or 15 points. Texas gave up about 350 yards to Jamar Smith from Louisiana Tech. They missed 2 field goals, or they would have covered that game. I think LSU has the best defensive athletes in college football.
I'm on the other side. Give me Tom Herman. Underdog role. Going back to his days as an Iowa State offensive coordinator, 24-2 against the number. And I just think, can you really trust Ed Orgeron in a big game? Tom Herman, I can. I've seen him big game against the Sugar Bowl, games against Oklahoma. I lean with the Horns, KT.
It's going to be a good one, man. I just want to watch the game, man.
Oh, there you go.
This is one that I can't figure, because I like the grittiness of Ellinger, but I like this LSU team, and I like Joe Burrow. I thought Joe Burrow was solid outside of the Alabama game last year. I really liked his moxie coming over from Ohio State. We'll see how it pans out. Meanwhile, Tulane, it's a team, keep an eye on this game, because Auburn, very fortunate not only to get the cover, but get the win and the cover against Oregon, a game they trailed for 59 minutes and 51 seconds. Just very fortunate. And look, you could say what you want, Malzahn. You throw that ball back shoulder in that, when you're in field goal range to win a game, if that ball's picked off, this guy doesn't even make it out of his own stadium. I mean, and Bo Nix, I know his dad played there. Patrick played there as well and was very happy. But, man, that was a sketchy pass. Now, the prior pass was real nice, the crossing pattern. But the one he threw that won the game, if the corner even turns around, that ball is up there. It's floating. That ball should have been knocked down at worst and possibly could have been picked off. Tulane, very solid effort in their opener, taking on Auburn. They're getting a bunch of points here, Brad. 17.5, 51.5 the total.
Yeah, a bunch, but I expected it to be more. I'm a little disappointed. It's going to be a pass for me. I was expecting the line to be 20, 21, and I thought I'd be on Tulane there, but just too short for me.
I like Tulane with the plus 18. I think they lose by maybe a touchdown, maybe 10 points.
Yeah,
oh, wow, strong. I love it.
Yeah, they had a good game, too, against FIU at home opening up. Arkansas and Ole Miss. This line has Mississippi favored by 6 here at Kenner. There's 6.5s out there, 51 the total. Brad, I'm going to jump right into it with you in Oxford. What about this Ole Miss team?
I'm going to go with the under. Ole Miss last year, dead nut over team. This year might be the opposite. Defense looked fine against Memphis. Memphis is a good offensive team. That they corralled them for a little bit. Speaking of corral, that's the quarterback for Ole Miss. He did not look so well last week against a Memphis defense that hasn't been known as being very good. So under for me.
I agree with Brad. Under 100%.
All right, then Nevada at home last week against Purdue, and that miracle comeback, big time. To come back and cover the spread, but to get the outright win on a 56-yard field goal. And how cool was that, though? The kid that kicks it ends up getting a scholarship right there after the game. I like stuff like that. That's always good. Carson Strong actually played pretty well for the Pack in the second half. Threw for 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards, rushed for another 34. Taua had 56 on the ground and a touchdown, 8 receptions for 64. And Cooks and Fossum, very solid, combining for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, for Oregon, Justin Herbert and the guys still wondering how that game got away at Jerry's house against Auburn. C.J. Verdell in the backfield. He'll have to do better than 76 yards on 14 carries. He may not have help from Travis Dye. Dye is banged up right now, got taken out of that game. Troy Dye, though, they're all everything linebacker, Travis's brother. 15 tackles, 10 of them solo last week. Johnson and Red, 16 receptions there for the Ducks as well. The Ducks at home at Autzen Stadium, always tough to beat. Going to lay 24 big ones. This line up 2.5 points, 61 the total. Man, I'll tell you what, if you like Oregon, I would think Nevada could score on Oregon. I would look at the over.
Tough handicap, intriguing handicap, because on one end you got a team that should be very disappointed. A game got away from them late. Only time they were not covering Oregon last week is the final 9 seconds of the game. On the flip side, you got a team coming off a very emotional upset win. Are they going to be flat, Nevada, in this game? Or are they going to be confident, hey, we can play with the big boys? I think 24 is just a little too much, though. I'll take the Wolfpack.
For me, it's a pass, but Oregon is they have really, really good cornerbacks. They're actually much better defensively this year than they've been in a long time. I can't lay the 24. I'm with Brad there, but I can't support Nevada either, so it's just a pass for me.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, right now Oregon becomes Auburn's biggest fans, hoping they can knock off Bama, LSU, some of the big boys, and get themselves into position to play in the SEC championship game. Then they could say, hey, we had that game for 51 minutes plus. Yeah, I know it is. Good luck. It's tough for the Pac-12 because they needed that one as a conference. Buffalo at Penn State. Penn State off the route last week against an FCS club, naming the score, taking care of business. 30.5 they're going to lay to Buffalo. 56 the total. Matt Myers, quarterback for the Bulls. This team, not the same squad that we've seen in years past. Sean Clifford, pretty solid quarterback effort last week, both throwing and running the ball. Ford and Kane in the backfield, not bad. Hamler, outstanding receiver, had 9 receptions, 115, 2 touchdowns, 7 sacks, didn't give up any against Idaho. They rolled over the Vandals, who are now an FCS club, Brad.
I can only look towards Penn State. Now, I did bet the Nittany Lions earlier in the week at a better number. This number's way up from where it was earlier in the week, but I lean with the Nittany Lions.
JD?
I like the under 56 in this game, KT.
That's all. All right, good enough. Eastern Michigan, nice win last week, taking on Kentucky. Found a way to steal a game against Toledo when Godani, the quarterback for the Rockets, went down. I thought that was a key juncture of the game. Kentucky and Mark Stoops, though, they find ways to win games. 52.5, but no Blake Snell, no Josh Allen, different team. Terry Wilson, 19 of 26, 246, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's outstanding for him. As far as running the ball, we know he can do that. He had a nice rushing game last week, 140 yards on the ground. Asim Rose, 64 on the ground as well. Meanwhile, for Eastern Michigan, Mike Glass, he can throw the football. How about very efficiently last week? 20 of 22, 188, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Rushed for a touchdown as well. Shaq Van in the backfield, very consistent. Eastern Michigan, they're missing Max Crosby, who's a member of that Raider squad now. What about it? Eastern Mich, they're going to catch 15 big ones, 52.5 the total from Lexington.
Florida on deck for Kentucky. That's a big game for them. Eastern Michigan, in the last 4 years, underdog, 18-3 against the spread. Kentucky is a home favorite, 1-10 against the spread. I'll take Eastern Michigan.
Brad? I'm sorry, JD?
Under 54.
You just
KT.
insulted the guy calling him Brad.
Exactly. That's just a very mean thing for you to say.
What did he do to you, KT?
I was actually talking to you. I was giving you a chance to get off Eastern Michigan, but now I'm going to play it since you like it that much. UTEP and Texas Tech from Lubbock. The Red Raiders minus 34, big one, 65 the total. UTEP, oh boy, I just can't take this team. I don't care if it's Kai Loxley, who's still suspended, or Brandon Jones, who quarterbacked last week. Yeah, they beat Houston Baptist barely near the end of the game. Texas Tech, 35-8 in first downs against Montana State, who I think is probably better than Texas El Paso. So I think the Red Raiders, if Bowman stays in there with Armand Shine, the transfer from Utah in the backfield, I think Texas Tech probably rolls by 40.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Houston Baptist, to put it in perspective, an FCS team that was a combined 2-20 the last 2 years, and that was a team that took UTEP to the wire last week. Jones, didn't look great, but his 10 completions, KT, did go for 268 yards. That's not too bad. Every time you complete a pass, 27 yards. But with all that being said, give me the Red Raiders.
Yeah, go. Texas Tech minus 35. They're going to crush these guys.
There you go. All right, Miami of Florida, North Carolina, seeing different opinions on this game. This line now up to 5.5 here at CGT, 5 pretty much everywhere else. 47 the total here, 46.5 most places here in the Vegas Valley. Jaron Williams and the guys have been off for a while since their loss to Florida. DJ Dallas, I thought, had a real nice game against the Gators. And I like Jaron Williams. I know they got sacked 10 times, and that's tough. But Williams showed me some flashes there to get away from 2 or 3 defenders at times. And it's Florida. Florida defense, are you kidding me? North Carolina's defense compared to Florida, it's not even a comparison. I think Miami's going to roll in this game big time. They have the extra rest. I'm not sold on North Carolina. They played against Jake Bentley. Yeah, they beat South Carolina. Jake Bentley played the last 2 quarters with a broken foot, didn't even realize it. So you tell me North Carolina, look, Mac Brown's a great story. Sam Howell, the freshman, they found a way to win, outscoring them 15-0 in the fourth quarter. I think Miami rolls by double digits big.
Oh, wow. I'm on the other side. Give me North Carolina. I think they're going to be excited there in Chapel Hill, as excited as they've probably been there, arguably since Mac Brown was on the sidelines 20 years ago. So I think it's going to be one of the better atmospheres that they've had in 2 decades there. And I just don't trust that Miami offensive line at this point.
You actually sold me on this, KT. I wasn't going to touch this game at all, but after this emotional explanation of your support for Miami, I'm taking the Hurricanes minus 4.5.
Give me the 305 turnover chain. It's the new one.
Yeah, I like it.
Meanwhile, 2 quarterbacks that we thought could be pretty solid all season long in the Pac-12. KJ Costello for Stanford and, of course, JT Daniels for USC. Both are out. Daniels out for the year. Costello will miss this game, so Davis Mills will step in. Scarlett running game, not bad last week, 97 yards. How Stanford covers against Northwestern, well, for you folks that have the Cats last week, you don't even want to relive that anymore. You've already heard it, you've seen it, and you're sick of it. Malapei for USC, 134 on the ground and a touchdown. Stephen Carr, 99 yards receiving and rushing the ball, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Vaughns was outstanding, 11 receptions, 150 for Southern Cal. USC, their defense stepped up at times against Fresno State. They did get the kickoff return, and that was huge. But I think Southern Cal's got enough offense to hold off Stanford. Not because I'm an SC fan, but because without Costello, I'm not sold Davis Mills, your 5-star guy, is going to do much against Southern Cal. I think USC wins by a touchdown.
All right, I like the under here. And reason being that air raid offense looked really good in the first half, where JT Daniels, attempted 34 passes, KT. Second half with the true freshman, 8 passes. What happened to the air raid? So with that being said, with 2 backup quarterbacks, 2, I think, pretty good defenses. I think Stanford's got a good defense as well. I like the under.
I agree with Brad. I'm on the under.
All right, Slovis, not a bad freshman, 6 of 8, 57 yards, but he did throw the pick. We'll wait and see how things pan out because Fresno State got that pick deep in their own territory, turned it into points, got the cover that way. Meanwhile, Cal and Washington up there in Seattle, it is the Huskies minus 13.5, 43.5 the total. We'll see what Garbers and company can do under Justin Wilcox now, trying to take care of business. Newton helped out Ahmed in the backfield, having a real nice game with 91 yards on the ground. And then Bryant leading that defense. 3 seniors, Bryant, Manu, and Poirier really stepping up as far as tackling there for the Huskies. McClatcher pretty solid, as well as Bryant and Fuller receiving that football. Huskies minus the 13.5. 42.5, 43.5 here at CGT. I'm going to look at Washington.
Yeah, I agree with you. Revenge game for Washington. They lost outright as a double-digit favorite last year. And how often does it happen? You lose the all-time leading passer in school history in Jake Browning, and I think they've upgraded at quarterback. They certainly have arm talent. Jacob Eason, a former 5-star recruit, really liked what I saw week 1. I'll take the Huskies.
JD?
I'm all over unders this week, KT. It's been left and right. I like the under 43.5.
All right, last game on the docket, D1, and there's plenty of D1 teams versus FCS teams.
You got
Brad
2
Powers.
more, KT. Don't forget Hawaii.
Oh, that's right. It's we got Hawaii, Oregon State, Minnesota at Fresno State. Minnesota -3. There's some 3.5 still out there. 47 is the total, and we'll see how Minnesota does. They'll have to play a little bit better than they did last week at home. Fortunate to win their game against South Dakota State. Got the go-ahead touchdown with 5.5 minutes to go. Tanner Morgan, not as impressive as we saw him in flashes last year. Ibrahim, 36 yards on 12 carries. Rodney Smith was a workhorse, 21 carries, 92 yards. They are still missing one of their running backs, who probably misses again this week in Brooks, I believe. And Fresno State, meanwhile, Reyna. I liked what I saw out of Reyna. I thought he was a blue-collar guy. I liked the way he ran the football. I thought he threw it pretty well. Ronnie Rivers, not the greatest game, but still good enough. And then Walker, a tackling machine. 15 tackles there. Gaston had 12, and Hughes had 11. So you had 38 tackles between those 3 guys for the Dogs. I think Fresno State's going to win this game at home, Bulldog Stadium. I've been there. Pretty good home field advantage. And if Minnesota doesn't bring a better effort, Brad, they're going to lose this game.
Yeah, I agree. They got outplayed at the line of scrimmage by South Dakota State, a really good FCS team. But if you've been blindly betting on Fresno State the last 2+ seasons, you are 24-6 against the spread their last 30 games. Give me the Bulldogs.
JD?
I actually like the over 48 in this game.
There you go.
All right, so JD's on the over. Last game will be Hawaii. They are at home. They've been off for a while. This is a pretty solid squad, the one that I picked to win the West as far as in the Mountain West. And we'll wait and see. 2 pretty good quarterbacks. McDonald had 4 touchdown passes in the win in the opener, but threw 4 interceptions as well, and that hurt big time. Meanwhile, Oregon State, they were able to move the ball. Jake Luton throwing the ball around, doing okay. The running game not too bad, but Oklahoma State just too much. And then Jonathan Smith, most moronic thing that I've seen, and I've seen several moronic things, but they score right before the end of the first half to get the game down to 15. Extra point, you're going to be down 2 touchdowns. You're back in it at least, if you get that first score in the second half, you're at home, the crowd's into it. But what do? They go for 2. You're down 15. Who the hell goes for 2? Explain that. Let me get it down to 13. You're in the end of the first half. You're trying to have some momentum. So now you score with 4 seconds left. You have momentum, and then you go ahead and you miss the 2-point conversion. So now you're down 15. Later on in the game, they have to go for 2 again. They do. They end up losing the game by 16. Had they kicked the 2 extra points, everybody that backed Oregon State wins the money because they were plus 14.5, 15, 15.5, and 16 for those fortunate ones that got it when it first came out, Brad.
So you were one of those Oregon State guys.
I was.
Hey, so was I, Brad.
Yeah, so was I.
All right.
All right. But you know what? I think brighter days are ahead. I think they get to cover Oregon State this week. But first, I do want to mention Hawaii against Pac-12 opponents when they've been hosting them the last
7 straight, right?
7 straight. But on the other side, they're usually an underdog in those games. Hawaii is, and as an underdog, as a favorite actually, which they are in this case, Hawaii is 6.5-point favorite. 3-15 against the spread last 18 times they've been laying points. Give me the Beavers here.
In order for Oregon State to cover this spread, the game has to go over. So I'm taking the over.
All right, so that'll do it as far as the college. Jackson, left tackle for Iowa, is out. Ernest Brown Surprised he didn't get a penalty against Costello. That was one that I just circled. That kind of surprised me that there was no roughing the passer, and Costello out still with the concussion protocol. Minnesota Brooks is now questionable. NC State, C.J. Riley, receiver, he is out for the year now. Cade Warner, wide receiver for Nebraska, questionable. We'll find out tomorrow if he plays. We already told you Daniels and Costello are out. Also, Walker Little, the fine tackle for Stanford, he is out as well. He'll miss the game tomorrow against Southern Cal. Northwestern, T.J. Green, Trent Green's kid, he's out getting foot surgery. Tariq Black still questionable from Michigan. We told you Nelson, Bruss, and Orr all out for the Wisconsin defense, and those are just some of the injuries that could play into the games tomorrow. We'll take our final break of the night. Well, we'll actually take a quick 1-minute break. We'll come right back with the NFL. Then we'll get out at 58. SportsX Radio, the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM. It is Ken Thomson. It is Brad Powers. It is J.D. Sharp. At Brad Powers 7, at I'm J.D. Sharp, at SportsX Radio, and at Ken Thomson 87. Follow us social media that way. We are live at Legacy Stadium. Folks, if you have not been here, you get here. Remember, say KDWN, free draft beer. Your first draft beer, free Bud Light draft. And then you also, in case you didn't want beer, you can get a house Chardonnay or a house Cabernet. And again, just mention KDWN. Come in and see me. I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. SportsX Radio at the beautiful Legacy Stadium in the Venetian Palazzo. We'll be right back live from Vegas. Who says you can't rock out on AM radio, man? 720 on the AM side, but 101.5 on the FM side. A little Black Label Society, a little BLS brother-in-law, Zach Wild, bringing us back from break. Ken Thomson, J.D. Sharp, Brad Powers. The guys are with me on a Friday football fiasco as we roll on through into the NFL, finishing up here. Do not forget, it is Ladies' Night Wednesdays. Guys, you want to impress your lady. Say you want to watch sports, and she says, I'm not really into going to a sports bar. Just say, no. Here's the deal. If I take you to this venue and you don't like it, I will never offer to take you to a sports bar again. It's not just a sports bar. It is a sports bar, restaurant. It is everything. You can make your wagers right here, guys. It is top of the line. And ladies' night, 50% off on Well Drinks Draft Beer, One Hope Chardonnay, and Cabernet. Do not forget, KDWN, when you walk in, your first One Hope Chardonnay or Cabernet or your first Bud Light Draft on the house, courtesy of Legacy Stadium and SportsX Radio. Tortilla chips and dips, great special there, $5. Roasted shishito peppers. That's right. Got to say that carefully and slowly to make sure you don't screw that one up. Candied bacon, ahi tuna poke chips as well. $7 specials there, and lots of specials on Wednesdays. It is Ladies' Night. Do not forget the doubleheader on Monday. Houston and New Orleans, Denver and the Raiders right here. Thompson will be here early. Come on down and see me right there. The studio right outside Legacy Stadium. All right, let's go to the NFL venue, jump into it with Atlanta and Minnesota. This is a Falcons team with a pretty solid offense and a pretty good team. I think this game's going to be a lot of fun, Brad. And Minnesota, Kirk Cousins has a lot of proving after last year. Now, Diggs, he's going to go, but he was a little bit banged up there for Minnesota. But they've got, between him, Thielman, two of the better receivers on any one team. Atlanta also, Julio Jones a little bit banged up, listed as questionable. I expect him to go. Him and Mohamed Sanu, great combination there. Brad Powers, your take on this? Minnesota -4, total of 47 at CGT.
Yeah, it's tough, not going with Mike Zimmer. But you know what? I will go with Mike Zimmer. Let's just look at Mike Zimmer. He's head coach for Minnesota last 5 years against the spread, blindly betting on Minnesota. 65%. As a home favorite, even better, 78% in those last 5 years. Give me the Vikings.
JD?
I like the under 47 in this game.
All right. KT? Boy, I'll tell you, you look at teasing Atlanta up to 10. Now, remember, teasers in the college only come into play about 1 out of every, 3 times. But as far as in the pros, sometimes you'll have seasons where they come into play over 50%. So Fez giving me the approval on a 2-team 6-point teaser in the NFL. Now, some places you can still get minus 110, but now there are some shops that have it at minus 120. So be careful there. But when you can get it up to a key number on 10, now a lot of shops as well. So say you took Atlanta plus 10 and the other game loses, the other game of your teaser loses. Hold on to that ticket because a lot of places will pay if you push one of those games because you cannot have a one-team teaser. Make sure you check your tickets and your rules at all the shops that are concerned because everybody does have different rules. Philadelphia and Washington, divisional game, and look at this line is up to 10, total of 45. Carson Wentz has the stage to himself right now. Washington, on the other hand, they've got some work to do. And that's the thing. The other Gruden, Jay Gruden, trying to get the most out of his team. Brad Powers, they don't have Doxson anymore. They cut him. I'm just wondering how long before we maybe see a quarterback switch there with the youngster that they're paying all that money.
It'll be a while, but it'll happen sometime this year. I also wonder when we're going to see a head coaching change with Jay Gruden on the hot seat. I want to go with Philly here, but division dogs now in week 1 are now 18-4-1. So with that trend the last 5 years, I certainly don't want to lay double digits. It's a pass for me.
JD?
So who is their number one? Is it Terry McLaurin?
Yes.
That is exciting.
Well, they have, and Paul Richardson.
That is just awful. You know, personnel-wise, Philadelphia looks like one of the best teams in the NFL on paper. I like them with the 10 here.
Yeah, I mean, you still have Jordan Reed, pretty reliable tight end, and it's a divisional game, so you're not going to be intimidated. But I agree. I think Philadelphia, I mean, definitely, to me, the team to beat in the NFC East. I know Zeke makes a world of difference for Dallas. We'll get to that game in a little bit because they are a much different team when they have him. Meanwhile, Buffalo and the New York Jets. This is a Buffalo team that expects a lot from Josh Allen. I do like the way Matt Barkley plays in preseason anyway. I mean, it's nice to have a decent backup. No more LaShawn McCoy. We'll see how this team rolls. Singletary's now a member of that team in the backfield as well. Buffalo Bills team going to take on the Jets, and the Jets are looking at potentially making the postseason. Can the SC kid Sam Darnold get off to a good start? It's a great rivalry. We'll see who comes out on top. Whoever does get this win, I think, is going to have a lot of confidence moving forward. Jets -3, even money. Now, there's some -2.5s, including here at CGT. CGT, though, you're laying 115 for 100 if you lay the 2.5. 41 the total, 40.5 most places, Brad.
I lean with Buffalo here. I think Le'Veon Bell will be a little bit rusty after sitting out a year. Adam Gase struggled against Buffalo, failed to cover the last 4 times he played him when he was the Miami Dolphins head coach. So I'm going to lean with the Bills here.
Yeah, I like what Josh Allen's doing up there in Buffalo. I also lean the Bills. I think their defense has gotten a lot better as well, and they're actually really, really good at defensive back.
You know, the fans there watching Baltimore play the Chargers were like, gosh, can we get this kid to the bench, please, and bring Flacco in? But John Harbaugh had to bite hard and just say, gosh, I can't do it because management wants me to play the kid. They did. Jackson improved in the second half, but the game was already over in the first half. Now, John Harbaugh, a 6.5-point road favorite in Miami as the Brian Flores era starts for the Dolphins. It's a Dolphins team that, well, they have Ryan Fitzpatrick. He'll start. Josh Rosen will back him up. So you have adequate quarterback play, but, man, they sent a lot of their team away as far as in trades prior to the end of the preseason. I think Baltimore could roll in this game, but I'm not sold on Lamar Jackson yet throwing the football. I know he can run it. Got to show me he can throw consistently before I lay nearly a touchdown in the NFL. Brad, you and I look at these college lines, 6.5. A lot of times we don't think twice about it. In the NFL, 6.5 is a lot of points.
Especially on the road. If you flipped it, I mean, would you be wanting to lay 12.5 at home? I don't think that'd be the case. But with that being said, Baltimore's covered 8 straight meetings. Harbaugh's really good in season openers as far as winning and covering. Lean Baltimore for me.
Is this the lowest opening week total in NFL history?
Oh, no, that's been lower.
Has it been lower? Yeah, I like the under. I like the under in this game. I don't think the Dolphins can score.
Maybe not recently, but yeah.
Well, CGT agrees with you. They have it at 39. Everywhere else in town has 39.5 currently as Baltimore at Miami. Baltimore 6.5 and 39. San Francisco on the road. It's a pick'em game now against Tampa Bay, but there's a lot of places where you can get up to a 1.5 with San Fran, 50.5 to 51 the total, including 50.5 here at CGT. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo, hopefully he can stay healthy, but I think this Niners team, they have potential. I think they have potential to make the postseason, even coming out of the NFC West, even with Seattle and the Rams. Looking forward to this game. Kittle, a little bit banged up, but he's going to go. They've got players, including the playmaker that Brad and I liked at South Carolina and Deebo Samuel. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston, if he can just take care of business and throw the ball to guys that are wearing his colors, he'll be okay. Mike Evans, one of the better receivers in the country, and we know Chris Godwin, outstanding as well. Tampa Bay, San Fran, it's a pick 'em for a reason. I mean, this game is going to be one that I want to watch, Brad.
Yeah, tough game. So I think Bruce Arians is an upgrade over Dirk Cutter. But with that being said, tough one to handicap here. San Francisco's lost 12 straight games in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, but they catch a break because it's a late 4 o'clock start as far as Eastern Standard Time. Pass for me.
The Bucks have tried to get better defensively at cornerback. They've been just terrible. Hargreaves hasn't done anything for them. I like the over in this game.
All right, remember Byron Leftwich, your offense coordinator, and Todd Bowles, former Jets coach, is the defensive coordinator there for Tampa Bay. Welcome, Ndamukong Suh. Kansas City, yes, Tyreek Hill getting a contract extension. Doesn't matter. Not only does he not get suspended, he gets $54 million for 3 more years. It's unbelievable how things happen only in America, only in the NFL. Jacksonville at home against KC. Right now, the Chiefs laying 3.5. Now, you can still find 3 minus 120 several places, but here at CGT, minus 3.5 for KC. Total of 51. Brad, against them Jaguars. What about Nick Foles making his debut in the regular season?
Yeah, so obviously Nick Foles is an upgrade over Blake Bortles. And Jacksonville, even last year, as pathetic as they were, they really got up in the home underdog role. They beat New England outright. They beat Indianapolis outright. And they nearly beat Pittsburgh outright. They make this one close. Give me the Jags.
I like the Jags +4 as well.
All right, Tennessee and Cleveland. The Brownies -5 here at CGT. 5.5's around town if you like Tennessee. For the Browns, of course, Freddie Kitchens going to make his debut regular season-wise as far as trying to take care of business. Todd Monken, we remember him when he was at Oklahoma State. His brother, of course, the coach at Army. The Brownies, a lot expected of this team, bringing in Beckham Jr. to go along with the other weapons they have, including Baker Mayfield, Landry, Jarvis Landry. I mean, there are weapons on this team, and Hunt will get his action eventually there for the Browns as well. It's going to be an interesting game. We'll see what Tennessee can bring. Tennessee's a consistent team year in, year out, and the defense is usually pretty tough. Pressure on Mariota to keep his job because Tannehill's there now, Brad.
I'm on Tennessee here. So the Browns, since they came back in '99 season openers, 1-18-1 straight up. Now they're laying 5.5 points here. And it's improved as the Browns were last year against winning teams 1-5 straight up. And Baker Mayfield had a negative touchdown interception ratio in those games. Give me Tennessee.
You know, I did like Tennessee until I saw that Taylor Lewan was out in the face of Myles Garrett, so it's kind of a pass for me at this point.
All right, 7 games, 7 minutes to go. Detroit at Arizona. Kyler Murray era starts. We'll wait and see if he can handle pressure because I think Detroit's going to bring pressure. The only game he was pressured, Murray, against the Raiders in preseason, and he struggled mightily. I think Detroit brings the pressure. Matt Patricia, that's what he does best as far as dialing up the defense. I think Galladay and Jones and Amendola, these guys could have big games. I'm looking at Detroit to win this game handily in Arizona.
Oh, wow. I'm on Arizona here. I think if there's one game where they can scheme up some stuff for Kyler Murray, it'd be this one.
Now the old Chris Wynn factor comes into play.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You know, actually, I have Detroit as the most improved team in the NFL this year. I like them to destroy Arizona this week. I like them to possibly win the division and make the playoffs. I took them over 6.5 wins a while ago. I think they're the most improved team in the NFL. Detroit -2.5, total of 46.5. Cincinnati at Seattle. It is Seattle -9.5, 45 here at CGT. No more Doug Baldwin. Also Mike Iapati is doubtful for this game on the left guard position there. And we know Jaron Reed suspended the first 6 games there for Seattle. Cincinnati, A.J. Green banged up. You know, we'll wait and see. Jonah Williams, also their right tackle, he's going to miss. So Andy Dalton, the red rifle, what can he do? He's going to try and get the ball to Mixon, Bernard, Travion Williams now on that squad. I don't know if Cincinnati can hang, but 9.5 is a lot of points in the NFL. But Seattle's one of the best home field advantages, Brad.
Yeah, but not necessarily laying a big number. I mean, Seattle in recent years has lost outright at laying 8 or more points a couple times here. So too big of a number for me, especially week 1, out of division. Pass. I like the Bengals and the under. Chargers at home -6.5, 44.5.
And, of course, no Melvin Gordon. His team a little bit banged up, but the ever-steady Phillip Rivers. But Rivers a lot of times gets off to a slow start, but he does have Hunter Henry back off the injury last year. We'll see if they can get the ball to Keenan Allen and company. Meanwhile, the Colts, it's Jacoby Brissett taking over for Andrew Luck. Now, he got to play a little bit there in the preseason. They signed Brian Hoyer as well as a security blanket. They do have Chad Kelly, but he's suspended for the first 2 games of the season. So right now it's Hoyer backing up Brissett, and they'll carry 2. Funchess a little bit banged up as well for the Colts. A lot of sharp people that I know like the Colts in this game. 6.5, 44.5. I'm not sold on Brissett. He doesn't feel the blind side at the pro level. I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah, tough one. I would probably lean the Colts, although they're 1-10 against the number in season openers the last 11 years. But with the Chargers, without their left tackle, safety, Gordon, the running back, lean Colts.
I like the under 44.5.
There you go. J.D. Sharp playing a lot of totals now. Pittsburgh at New England. New England -5 here. There are some 5.5s around town. Well, you don't have to say much about, and actually we'll get back to Giants and Dallas. I skipped over that
Carolina Rams.
In Carolina, boy, I missed that one too. I'm so sorry. Okay, and I'll get back to both. Those games. We just got to hurry up.
It's all right, KT.
Brad,
it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, total pass for me. I think 7's a fair number.
Pass.
There you go. You forgot which game we were on, right? Let me backtrack. Rams and Carolina. Sorry about that, folks out there. Rams -2. 50 the total. Still some ones, 1.5 here at CGT. Cam Newton's probable. I'm not sold he's 100%. I love McCaffrey, one of my favorite players, but I think this Rams team, that offense still good. And with Cooper Kupp back in the lineup, I can only look Rams.
I can't. I'm taking the Panthers. Rams playing that 10 a.m. start time, first of the season. I think Carolina allows them to sleep.
I'll take the over in this game, KT.
Yeah, I don't think the 10 a.m. start matters as much in an opener as it would maybe second week or some other time.
Really? Coming off preseason games?
Who's playing preseason, though? None of their starters.
Yeah,
all right, sleeping.
Fair enough.
They were catching sleep. They didn't need it.
Slow start for the Rams.
All right, we'll see. Book me on that one. I'll take it. I'll take Rams.
All right,
you get 1.5 here at CGT.
All
right. Jump on down here. We got Pittsburgh, New England, got the guys there. Giants and Dallas. Dallas -7. Zeke probably gets in there. How much practice do you need to go against the Giants? 45.5 the total. What about it? What about Eli and company?
I don't. Keep in mind that as bad as the Giants were last year, they lost 8 games by 7 points or less. But this one's a pass for me.
I'll take the Giants with the points in this game, KT.
JD's got a touchdown there. Houston and New Orleans, the first of 2 on the Monday night doubleheader. Saints at home -7, 52.5. 7 even money pretty much around town. So some money being pulled there on the Houston Texans. I can't go against Breeze and the boys. I'll tease New Orleans down to 1, and I think they take care of business. A lot of people I know like Houston, Brad.
Yeah, I like Houston here. I mean, Monday night, this makes a lot of sense. A trend. Monday night dogs, week 1. So the public's getting involved. It's the opener of the season. Monday night dogs last 30 years cover 60% of the time, giving the Texans.
I'll take Texans as well, and I think that Michael Thomas, he signed that massive, that giant contract. He caught, 80% of the balls last year. Breeze is getting older. That's not going to change. I think the Saints lose. I think they win less than 9 games this year.
There you go, and we got about a minute or so to go. So last game, the second of the 2 Monday night games, the doubleheader, starting at 7:15 Pacific from the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. The Raiders, baby, taking on Denver. Broncos still a 1-point favorite here at CGT. You can still find 1.5. Need something to tease that New Orleans down to 1. I'll take the Raiders up to 7. I think that's my Monday night teaser right there. New Orleans and Oakland. I like the Raiders. I think they're going to win the game with Antonio Brown. I think this team's going to be fired up. Look, if they don't win, they might not win more than 3 games this year. I think they win this game. They take care of business against Flacco and company.
KT's Monday night teaser of the century. I like Oakland actually as well. I mean, they have to win this game. If they don't, they're staring right at an 0-7 start. So give me the Raiders.
Who's going to guard Antonio Brown? It's not going to be Chris Harris, and certainly not going to be Bryce Callahan. I'll take the Raiders.
Great stuff. JD Sharp at I'm JD Sharp. Brad Powers at Brad Powers 7. At SportsX Radio. At Ken Thomson 87. A Friday Football Fiasco live at the beautiful Legacy Stadium inside the Venetian Palazzo. Folks, come on down and see us on Friday nights. The guys will be here with me. And, of course, I'll be here Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Friday. SportsX Radio rolling at you. Thanks to Sean McCullum back at the studio. Thanks to you, the listeners. Till Monday, you know the rules. No drinking and driving, no texting and driving. Most of all, God bless our troops. God bless you. Live from Vegas, SportsX Radio, the new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN. Folks, have a great weekend. Hope all your games come out well. Talk to you Monday. God bless. Good night, everybody.